Hi everyone, welcome again for another podcast with Sponge Global Learning, your place for consulting, training and engineering. Today to the studios we have invited another very important person, Dr. Sithira Ambepitiya from Vector AI. Welcome to the studios, Sithira.
Thank you.
Right, Sithira, I wanted to kind of start the discussion not in a usual way, but I'm just thought of steering the conversation in a way that usually I have been asked questions. Okay, so it is almost like me trying to find out answers from you for most of the questions that I get from my clients. Imagine there is a large company, a traditional company, been there for last maybe 50, 60 years, 5,000, 6,000 plus employees, and they're doing really well right now. So there's this whole buzz about AI. Now, if you are being invited to kind of change the mindset of these HODs or the heads of the departments of this big conglomerate of this company, in order for them to adopt AI, how would you go forward with the pitch?
So I would first understand a bit more about what their business is and what the processes are, right? Because at a high level, when it comes to agentic AI, even AI workflows, it's about automation, and it's about saving time. So I would first I need to identify what their business is, what do each department actually does, and not just what do they do, but what do they spend the most time on. And if I can identify a few workflows which can be automated, right, with the workflow, which trust me, you can, and show them the time savings on that. Like, hey, this is something your call center does. Like, you have 10 people in the call center, they're missing 50% of your calls, and because of that, you're losing X amount of business. With the agentic workflow, we can have 100% of the calls, and you won't miss any of the business. And the cost is going to be this much, and your ROI in like 60 days will be this much. I think that is how I would go about it. Identify a very specific workflow that they're actually currently doing manually, an actual pain point for them, figure out how an AI workflow would happen and what the actual benefit to them is. Because for any business, they want to do more with the same amount of resources, right? They don't want to hire more and more personnel. And if you can demonstrate that, I think any HOD would love that.
Well, that's great. But then again, if you look at any organization, apart from the operations could change based on manufacturing or whether it is service companies or various other business models that they have. But most of the time, if you take like the shared services, the finance, HR, even marketing and sales, I'm sure there are very like recurring use cases or recurring case studies that could probably persuade these HODs to consider adopting AI. So in your experience being in this industry, being a practitioner who has been consulting many local and as well as international organizations, what type of those case studies or few things that you can mention here, Sithira?
Yeah, so well, let's start with sales, right? If it's inbound sales, yeah, you might have multiple channels. You might have a form on your website, you might have a WhatsApp channel and people like coming with queries, right? Or even the Facebook comments and DMs. But with the 100% human workforce, you're going to miss a lot of these leads, right? So, and this is where a relatively simple agentic workflow can come in, where it curates all the incoming leads, right? From your website, from Instagram, pretty much any digital media. Populate a CRM or even an Excel sheet, and then shoot back with a message with another response from your side. Like, hey, thank you for reaching out and asking about this product. This is a bit about the product. And once the lead gets warm, then it can be passed to a human sales executive. Or if not, you can just collate it and let the human sales executives know, all right, there's 1,000 leads from yesterday. What do you want to do? That by itself saves a lot of time. That's for sales. Imagine HR. Let's say you're hiring someone. I know you're quite familiar with this. Even analyzing CVs, right? When I post a job, sometimes we get in excess of 150, CVs, and we do not have time to go through all of it. So again, another agentic workflow that analyzes them and shows you the top 10 or 20. How does that work? You can get them to upload the CVs to your website and you can pull the CVs after you're done. Get a multi-agentic system to analyze it in depth. If they have maybe a GitHub repo, you can go in the GitHub repo and analyze it. And then you see a dashboard saying, all right, out of everyone that we analyze, these are the top 20. You can go a step further. If they have the phone number, an agent can message them again and ask even more questions like the culture fits, things, maybe even cross-check them on certain technical questions, right? And then you see an even more enhanced dashboard. That's for sales, for what you call HR. If you take finance, let's say reconciliation receipts. Like a lot of times, it's just receipts, like physical receipts, online receipts. You have a accountant actually looking at the receipt and entering data, which is quite redundant. Accountants are specialized individuals. They should be doing something more than data entry. How would you automate that, right? So if it's an email, so have maybe one email box for all the receipts. The emails come in, a workflow starts by looking at the email first to see, is it a receipt? Because it could be spam. Extracting that receipt, using computer vision to analyze it, get an output from it, and then push it into a database or some sort of accounting software.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. You spoke about this HR CV analysis. Now people like me goes and teaches every day for students and people, hey, look here, your CV has to be now AI ready.
Yeah.
You make sure that your CVs are being prepared in such a way that your keywords are right, so the algorithm will pick these type of things. So what do you think about that now it seems like the rest of the world is also getting prepared for adoption of AI. How could you solve that type of issues?
Yeah, so to answer that question, how do you optimize your CV for an AI agent? I think be very clear about what you do. Previously, you were probably taught to optimize for ATS, right? ATS is quite deterministic. That's why keyword search is going on. But when an agent analyzes it, it just reads it like a recruiter would. So there's no tricks per se, but you have to make sure that your CV is hyper-optimized for the job role. To keep it simple, take the job description, take your base CV and get ChatGPT or Claude to rewrite the CV specifically for that job. And just to bring in agentic AI here, let's say there's 100 different jobs, create a workflow to create 100 different CVs for one tailored to each and every job description. Now on the flip side, you're dealing with hyper-optimized CVs. How can you be sure this guy can do what he does? AI-powered interviews. Right, like a basic interview using, let's say WhatsApp or even a video call, where you can monitor the timestamps to make sure they answer on the fly. Right, you can ask questions that assess technical skills, assess whatever you want before it ever hits a human person on your side. So it'll be a cat and mouse game.
Great. So you've been using this word agentic AI in few occasions. I'm sure that's kind of the buzz these days as well. But for the benefit of the viewers, I'll probably ask a question to clarify first of all what exactly agentic AI. So my understanding is that you have a workflow and you have many tools and many actors, human actors, who's been doing this particular workflow. Now, in simple language, what happens is you try to connect all these tools and you try to take the human aspect out or factor out from that, right? And you basically automate it. And that usually we used to call it RP or robotic process automation. And now if you are adding the agentic aspect to it, it's pretty much into this whole automation. Now you are adding a LLM or some sort of a cognitive capability into that whole workflow. Is that right? Or there is more to that?
I would maybe phrase it in a different way, right? So let's define what an agent is. There is no hard and fast rule when it comes to this. People have different opinions. But for me, an agent is a completion call with with multiple tools that it can choose to execute and some memory. And the ability to make a decision, because agent comes from the ability to have agency, and the amount of agency that you give depends on you. It can be completely fully autonomous, or it can be quite guided by guardrails. So that is an agent. So imagine the previous use case I discussed about analyzing CVs, right? So one agent could maybe analyze a component of it, right? What is a multi-agentic system? I always explain an agent as an intern, has all the knowledge in the world, but kind of stupid at times. Doesn't have experience. So if you give one of those agents too much things to do, it messes up. So then you have to break it down. So instead of doing these 10 things, you do one thing. And then the second guy comes in and does a second thing. So that's when it becomes multi-agentic, when you have more than one agent working in a flow, right? And that flow could be it could be like a sequential flow. So a workflow is deterministic, right? So let's say email comes in, regardless whatever happens, email comes in, it gets analyzed, and a message gets sent to you on WhatsApp. That's an AI workflow. AI extracts it, summarizes it, sends you a message, right? That's one way of going about it. Then you have hierarchical systems where there's an orchestrator on top, and he distributes tasks to many sub-agents. And once they're done with it, combines them, gives it to the user. So that's a multi-agentic system. So the flow of it depends completely on the use case. It could be 2 agents, it could be 10 agents, that is completely up to the builder.
So, so
I would not maybe again add something.
Sure.
So a workflow is a combination of multiple agents, and that's not necessarily RPA. RPA was mostly, automating front-end tasks, right? Where, it does clicks here and there and gets stuff done. That has been now replaced completely by CUA, computer use agents, where an agent has control of your desktop and goes and clicks something. So because not every software has an API which an agent can integrate into, especially legacy software, which is a big issue in large companies. And that's where computer use agent can pretty much go, take a photo of it and interact with the software like a human would.
Right. That's interesting. I mean, the one thing that comes to my mind when you're talking about agentic AI is like this Knight Rider kit, where you say something and it goes and does the whole thing and then come back and give the deliverables. Do you think are we at that maturity level?
I would say yes. Again, it might succeed 96% of the time, but it's not 100% because we're dealing with probabilistic models and it's probable it will fail sometimes. But I think we should not be comparing it to traditional software where we say it has to be 100%. We should be comparing with a human being. If the human being was to do the same workflow, what is their accuracy rate? And if it's higher than LLM, if it's lower than an LLM, then the agent would make a lot more sense.
I think it's the Anthropic CEO who said famously that in 2026, as soon as 2026, you will be having a car. I think it's if I recall, I think it's the Anthropic CEO who said that it is possible, as early as 2026 for you to have a $1 billion business with only one employee.
100%.
Is it?
Yeah. So 100%. One person with domain knowledge, could be a technical background or could be, ideally you should have a technical background, with domain knowledge can ideate, build a product using something like Replit, Cursor, or Claude. Like right now, my favorite is Claude Code and Codex. Build a product, deploy it, and even the deployment phase of it, like Google Cloud provides you $300 as credits for 3 months. Deploy it, use AI again to create a marketing plan, create content, automate that as well, create multiple workflows to keep on posting content, keep on getting engagement, and another agentic workflow for sales. It is the tools for a one-man billion-dollar company out there now, I would say. And I'm pretty sure by next year what that individual said will come into reality. Because even now I see 2-3 man shops with $30-40 million ARR.
Right. That's great. I want to be that. but then here's the other thing. Now, when you say certain things like that, everybody wants to do it. Now, let's see. Of course, there's a lot to be still adapted. Even ChatGPT, I get this message always saying, don't use ChatGPT like Google where you copy paste.
Yeah.
There are more to that. I'm sure there is a lot that you can do with it. There's a lot of training and there's a lot of experience that people still should get and get adopted. But at some point, I'm just thinking everyone would start using these tools. agentic AI capabilities to all these LLMs, whatever, which comes from all these AI models, then don't you think that we again come when most of these people start using them, there is no differentiator, and it will again be like the same as now?
I would say right now there's still we're still early to the game. There's so much opportunity, so much potential. But I do agree, software is becoming cheaper and cheaper. So Replit released their Agent 3 last week, and that runs for more than an hour by itself, where it not just creates whatever product that you're trying to build, it tests it out for you, checks everything, checks the entire user flow. And with things like this, software is becoming easier and easier to build, right? So I do see in the future where if you want something done, you're not going to pay $10 or $20 for it, for a software as a service. You'll have your own agent which can build anything for you. Right. So I do see a future in the next maybe 3-4 years. I mean, Satya Nadella has said the same thing, right? SaaS is dead. No one's going to pay $10 for a small app. They're just going to build it themselves. But still, the requirements are going to be there, right? These are small apps. But for larger solutions, you're still going to need somebody to build it for you and somebody to maintain it for you. So that I would say the need is always going to be there, but the bar of hitting that is going to be much higher. Small solutions no longer will cut it.
Right. So you're using Replit and Bolt and Cursor, these type of things. Now there's a big following on my personal channels on the IT industry. So now if you look at the software development life cycle, just imagine there is an application, maybe the front end would be either Angular or React, maybe the back end could be say .NET.
Yeah.
Now you have to end-to-end whole cycle, right? It may go even up to the DevOps and DevSecOps now you say. So if you really look at end-to-end, if there is a traditional software development organization, small or large, thinking of adopting, how do you think that you should start, first of all? Do you think that based on the tech stack that they use, different AI tools that needs to be kind of used? Third is that how do they know? I mean, that is an easy thing, right? Your productivity or efficiency measures can be definitely, there's a measurable impact. But if I am the person who is running that particular business, what do you suggest me doing, and how can I go forward with implementation?
I would say first, mindset matters a lot, right? So I've got into arguments with people, especially developers, because I come from a non-technical background, right? Where there's a vocal majority which is absolutely against it. And then you have not necessarily a majority, a certain segment of population that trusts it blindly. So expectations need to be set on what should be done and what should not be done. Claude Code and Codex if given the right context, can code beautifully, right? But you need to make sure the seniors are more open to using it, and you need to make sure the juniors don't blindly just accept the commits without necessarily understanding it. So that's one thing. And answering your question about the tech stack, as long as it's a relatively major tech stack, the LLMs have been trained on pretty much every token of data that's on the internet. So that should not be a problem, right? And where do you start? You can have agentic, so there's coding agents, right? Like my personal favorites, Claude Code and Codex. You can have it at every part of the life cycle, right? So starting from the product manager, let's say the product manager wants to create a new feature. Now, previously what you do is create a PRD, create some user stories. My flow is a bit different. I connect Claude Code so I clone the repo, connect Claude Code into it, and I just tell Claude Code, hey, this is what I want to build. Create me an in-depth technical PRD and a technical plan. It creates it.
Right.
So let's say at this phase, you want to pass it off to the technical individuals, let's say the dev team. It's not just a description of the feature, but the actual implementation, like a much more technical idea of the feature, right? And this gives the product manager a better idea of what's possible, what's not possible, and a better idea of how long it would actually take. Because certain things, a PM would think, hey, that's simple, but actually it's not that simple, and vice versa, right? And a lot of the product companies that I'm seeing right now, not Sri Lankan, but internationally, the PMs just break off a branch, vibe code the feature, and ship it to the devs to clean it up. Right. Because the PM knows exactly what the end user wants, right?
Right.
And most of the time what happens, especially in healthcare, there's a mismatch. The developers build something that they think is cool, but not necessarily what the end paying customer wants. That's one way of doing things, right? So now let's say you go to the developer. Again, Cloud Code and Codex. The new version of Codex came out 2 weeks ago, and it's bloody amazing.
Right.
That can be completely AI assisted coding,
Right.
where you don't necessarily hand code, but you guide the AI, right, with the extremely in-depth plan. So let's say now you got that the documents from the PM, you modify it further and spend at least 50% time on those documents, because that's going to guide the internet, the AI and the LLM, right? Most of the time these things fail, or the LLM creates problems when it doesn't have enough context, because LLMs inherently don't like saying I don't know. It's just it tries to fulfill your request.
Hallucinate,
yeah. So that's when the hallucinations happen. So this is where context engineering comes into play, because you have to spend a lot of time making sure you describe the flow of what needs to be done, and you can start building. So right now, previously, my senior engineers would average 1,000 lines of code a day, right, before Cloud Code. Now 10,000. A feature that takes 2 weeks, we can get it out in an hour. So now let's say back end, that's done, right? So let's say you're doing front end with things like Playwright, MCP, it can go on a cycle. You can create beautiful front ends and let it check as well, run scripts by itself and keep on checking until everything's working.
Right.
So a front end, I would always say, create a design document, get inspiration, go to Claude or something, dump in inspiration in terms of typography, color schemes, whatever images that you see, hey, based on all this, create me an in-depth design document. Get that design document, put Cloud Code, hook it up to the front end, and with the MCP, which can actually interact using Chrome dev tools. You can run it in cycles until it's working. It might not be one shot. You might have to do a few iterations, but yeah, that's possible, right? And I've seen a lot of people in terms of DevOps, that's done. So in terms of testing, also you can automate the entire test suite, right? You can, in terms of creating the test suite, Cloud Code is amazing at it, pretty much integration tests for everything. And then on the DevOps part of it, I've seen people using Cloud Code, the SDK headlessly on the pipeline itself to check the code coming in. And I personally use CodeRabbit in the pipeline to check my PRs, right? So in the SLDC pipeline, pretty much end to end, people are coming up with products, because as engineers, you're building a solution or something else, but I think, hey, this can be also used for my product.
Absolutely.
And software coding agents are the most tested agents in the world right now, because you know exactly when it breaks.
Yes.
And we are very merciless when it comes to performance. If it's bad, no matter how long I've been using it, we drop it.
Yes. I mean, there is a funny saying, right? The software engineers finally wrote some code where they will, shoot themselves, make them disrupted. One thing, so all these tools, you spoke about the entire software development life cycle. I'm sure there are different tech stacks. So is this technology agnostic, whatever the tools that you just mentioned?
Yeah, it's agnostic, right? Like I said, if there's enough training material online, LLM has been trained on it, right? So we use, for these coding agents, you usually use SOTA models, right? State-of-the-art models, like Claude, Sonnet 4, Sonnet or Opus. On the OpenAI side, you have GPT-5 and GPT-5 Codex. Even the Chinese models, the GLM-5, 4.5, they've been trained on everything. So as long as it's not some sort of obscure, framework or some sort of obscure language, it's agnostic.
Amazing. Great insights. I'm sure all of y'all are benefiting from this discussion. One other thing is, Sithira, now almost all these features, and rightly so, they are charging some subscriptions, starting from a free tier where you can't do anything, particularly with some creative things. You just do a couple of pictures or 1 second or 2 seconds videos, the credits are gone. So after that, you have to go into these $20, $30, $50, whatever. And also, if you're using the voice bots, again, the credits are there. So do you really think, particularly in the creative industry, I think the coding and all, that's fine. But what I have seen is mostly if it is like video creation and other creative industries, the credit usage is heavy. And also there is a, it's something that it's in your mind that you want to kind of create with the AI. First time it won't come. You have to perfect it, again do the prompting and do it. So so a lot of people say rather than using a manual, the usual workflows that they've been using, shifting to AI, unless otherwise you do few things like maybe color gradings or use some computer graphics, visual graphics, for those type of things that you use these AI capabilities. Still, the traditional workflows are more cost effective than completely transforming into AI. Do you agree, or do you have a different view on this?
I do not agree with that because on the cost part of it, I agree. Video creation is still a bit expensive. If you take VO3, if you get it directly from the API, I think it's about 65 cents USD a second, which is kind of expensive. But if you're very good at using the tool, you can, I mean, a 10-minute clip can be a world-class trailer or advertisement that would have easily costed you 10 million, 20 million Sri Lankan rupees to do it. So for a few 100,000 rupees, you can get that done. There is definite ROI. In terms of image generation, it's gotten too cheap to, it's just cheap. It's too cheap to meter. Like Nano Banana is free on Google AI Studio, right? Okay. Image generation, as it's, unless you're making thousands of content a day, the cost of it, I would not say, Sam, it's too relevant. Video, yes. Video, definitely yes. Because it's either runway ML.
Runway ML. Yeah. Either it is runway ML.
Yeah. So if video generation, it's bloody expensive, right? Runway ML has a pretty decent plan, but that still starts at $99. For example, my Vector AI's launch video, we used Runway ML to make. Probably took me and Kevin a week to make, not like 1 week fully. We had 101 things, and the plan was $99. You can check out the video as well. It's super nice, and these are the older models as well, right? If we were to actually make it, would have cost us millions, but it cost us 20,000 rupees, right?
Okay,
that's one part of it. But yeah, even VO3, I think on the $200 package on Gemini, that gets you a few minutes per month. And again, if you actively properly use those minutes, you get a ton of value out of it.
Right. So you mean to say you're always using the foundational model name, like all these Nano Banana and VO3 kind of thing. I'm sure there are many other guys which we call the wrappers, right, who use a wrapper around it and make the UI looks good kind of thing. So they must be charging a premium as well. So I think you probably need to go and find out a cheaper version by comparing many such tools. Probably they must be using the same foundation tool.
That's a perfect question. Yes, there are wrappers around these models that make the UI a bit cleaner, or they have node-based approaches where you can make it more agentic, where first you type in a query, you type in the description of what image you want, then that gets converted into a more in-depth document, and that gets converted to an image, and then gets converted to a video, right? So you have stuff like Higgs field. There's quite a few options that are out there. But they, like you said, they do charge a premium for the ease, like making it easy. But still, video is the only one that I would say is a bit expensive.
Okay, so coming back to business, I work with like very large organizations from a consulting front. So we have seen that the last 2 to 3 years, like if I talk about banking, right, everyone wants to kind of come up with some sort of a model, in the sense maybe a credit model or fraud detection model kind of thing. Now at least the main banks or insurance companies, they have somewhat deployed a model, and now I've heard even it is there in the Gartner hype report as well. Now we are moving away from AI model deployment to something what we call the AI ops, my understanding is AI ops stands for mostly checking whether these models are making the right decisions, and how many, what you got in our terms we used to call it like the false negatives and the false positives that they have made. So what are the developments in that aspect?
Yeah. So that is in terms of traditional machine learning, the life cycle. I will not talk too much about that because that's not necessarily my specialty. But you have the similar approach in agents.
Okay.
So, example, if you have a multi-agentic system working in banks to maybe analyze, to maybe pick up spending patterns of people to look for delinquency, to look for risky behavior.
Right.
Like imagine every day at 2 p.m., 2 a.m., the guy spends 70% of his salary in a club, right?
Okay.
Traditional ML models will not be able to necessarily pick that up, but a multi-agentic system can. So
Right.
that next time he comes for a loan, it might be flagged as a high-risk individual.
Okay.
So in this, we call it agent ops, where we monitor the agents in deployment through traceability platforms like Langsmith or Langfuse, where you can see every trace, every action that's been taken to analyze that. Because unlike traditional software, there is no one and done when it comes to agentic AI, right? Because there's multiple, like infinite use cases. There's infinite way of even communicating with a chatbot, right? But that also means there's infinite failure modes.
Right.
So in terms of agent ops, it's a continuous cycle. You have to continuously monitor the traces, continuously see for errors that are popping up, look at the latencies, and continuously optimize it.
Okay.
And that is a field that did not exist more than a year ago. But now it's as multi-agentic systems are going into production, right? Not just simple chatbots, sophisticated multi-agentic systems. It's imperative to have a proper agent ops platform, agent ops practice going on. Okay. If not, it works at demo, but it's going to break when it comes to production.
Sure. No, there are a lot of business owners also watching this podcast. So something which is maybe in their mind is how expensive it is for us to start this journey. At least now, in a normal medical terms, we first of all, if we have a symptom, we just consult a doctor, and probably consulting the doctor is not so expensive, so they can start with it. But of course, if you find there is some problem, you may have to go for expensive surgeries and things like that. Is it the same workflow? I mean, I use it as an analogy. If anybody to kind of do an initial assessment and to get somebody like you to have a look at their business and to give, hey, there are opportunities for improvement, there's opportunities for agentic AI, there are very significant ROIs or business impacts that you can get to get the process start and getting that initial consultation. Is it an expensive process, or is it like how do they kind of look at it?
Yeah, so to answer that question, it's very imperative that especially at this time you get an external consultant to come in who's built before to understand, or do you first need an agent? Because people will try to oversell you on it. Like not every problem requires an agent, and that's the first thing that you should get the consultant to answer. Do I need an agent for this? And if so, what would the flow possibly look like? What are the other external things that I would need in place? Like maybe you need a database. There's no point going to a builder or trying to approach a solution if the data is not there, right? So it's not as expensive as one would think, but it's a step that you should definitely not skip, because the moment you go to a vendor to buy it, the vendor's job is to sell it regardless if you need it or not.
Right.
So always spend time with a consultant who knows, who's fluent in this, to understand the requirement in depth, so that they can sort of act like an in-between between you and the vendor.
Right. Okay. One other thing is I have seen, because it's data protection and security is a big deal. So whenever you say an agent and you're trying to, even through an API, you're trying to connect it to a LLM, I'm sure most of them are basically linked to some sort of a model through an API and all. You don't usually run it on-prem or on your own systems till we get those capable processors or whatever in our laptops, right? So in this context, for adoption, this is a big issue for large companies, the data security. And also, because you are dealing with large scale companies, do you think that, because the same problem was there with cloud? I can remember in 2013-14, not the major banks didn't want to even go for cloud. Even currently, I think some data can go even in Sri Lanka to cloud, but still, like the personal data or things like that, or confidential data still can't go to. Subject for correction. I'm not an expert on this, but I've heard saying that all the data still cannot be moved into cloud. So, what is your take on that?
I would say this is a question we get all the time as well. And the first question is, if you're not mandated by law, is your data that worth it, right? Because let's say you're using OpenAI or Claude or Anthropic models, it's not like it gets saved, right? This guy said this, everything gets tokenized. There's trillions of tokens flowing through, right? And even as a business user of the APIs, there are certain terms and conditions. They can't access our data. They cannot use it for training purposes. So even though data is leaving the country and going to a third-party processor, the terms and conditions are pretty broad, where it does cover all those use cases. But sometimes clients are legally required not to send it to a third-party processor, or they generally do not want that to happen, right? And in that case, it's like a year ago, deploying your own LLM was unheard of, right? And H100 costs around now H100 costs about $1 to $2 an hour, and previously even a decent model was around 400 to 500 billion parameters, right? So it was extremely cost prohibitive. But now that is not necessarily an issue. You can deploy, like, let's say, a Quen model, which is about 30-40 billion parameters on your own on-prem if needed. If not on-prem, another cloud service which has a dedicated GPU for you. Okay. So there are multiple options that you can go with. Okay. It's not like previously where, if data privacy is concerned, that you can't have an LLM. You definitely can, but obviously there'll be a bit of a premium that you pay for it.
Okay, that's great. And one question that I have as a follow-up question after listening to your description, one of the researchers is doing some very sensitive research, Sithira, something related to defense and intelligence. So this person writes reports and kind of give it to various different think tanks and all those stuff, right? I'll not give much data about it, but this person wants to kind of get the grammar and the report done using one of these LLMs. But this person is again saying, if I give this information to the LLM, will someone else who is making a similar report, the new findings that this person found, because of sending it to the LLM, will get captured for another guy who's trying to write a report. So, but I could not give an answer because it's a sensitive issue. I said I need to check with an expert, because what I have understood is the models get trained by past data and multiple times iterations it needs to get trained. But whatever the data, new data that we send to these LLMs, are they using those also for training? I'm talking only about what goes through the chatbot, not something which is getting published on a paper or a research paper or out there. Is that a possibility?
So yes, if you're using a front-facing app like ChatGPT or Claude, there's an option where I want to opt in to use my data as training data, but there's also an option to opt out, where they say they won't be using it for training data. And if you choose to believe them, that means what you're using is not being used by the model, to train itself. In addition, if it's through the API, they definitely, in the terms and conditions, they say that they don't use it. So it's a matter of, do we trust these model providers? Okay. And at the same time, if it's really critical, you can have a LLM running locally in your home now. Yeah. If you can get a 5090 RTX GPU, you can get a Quen model with minimal quantization running locally on your computer. Or if you have a high-end Mac. And there are certain frameworks like Exolabs, where if you have, let's say, multiple Macs, you can tie the compute together. Okay. Because let's say you have enough RAM in total, but not in one machine for one model to run on. So what it does is it splits it up, so you can run it locally. Yeah. So like I said, it's not cost prohibitive anymore. It's expensive, but not ridiculously so.
Sure. I mean, that comes to the question of this proprietary AI. Yeah. So basically, now, yes, we were moving our on-prems to cloud. Now, do you see that it'll go the other way around also, where people will start having their own on-prem, as you said, high-end GPUs or machines, and having your own proprietary models, where that will definitely give them the edge, right? Then I have another question, but what's your take on this?
I think as models are getting more efficient and more efficient, getting smaller and smaller, we are going to have our own, everyone's going to have their own personal AI model, which it's continuously fine-tuned and improved based on your data, right? I do see, because it's getting cheaper and cheaper, and I see some providers having out-of-the-box hardware to run your own LLM. So I think people having their own personal LLM is going to be quite ubiquitous going in the future, where it's being continuously being trained on your own data, and it'll be like your personal assistant. But at the same time, the type of work that's going to be done by agents is going to become more and more sophisticated, and that's going to require large players like OpenAI and Claude and Anthropic, with large data centers. So it's going to go both ways. It's not going to be LLMs that were in the cloud. It's not going to, the usage of cloud-based LLMs is going to change to on-prem solutions. It's just that the use cases are going to explode so much. It's going to be both. Certain things it's going to be local. Certain things it's going to be the high-end models.
Right. So with this DeepSeek training their model for $6 million US, we got our hopes high that Sri Lanka also can come up with a similar kind of a foundation model. Do you think that it is becoming cheaper and we will also be having our own one very soon?
It's definitely gotten cheaper and cheaper. Was it $6 million? I think that might be the cost of the final training run, but that's definitely not the cost of the actual GPUs, I think. Definitely because of, let's say, the geopolitical issues that's going on, where the US is restricting the amount of GPUs. Chinese researchers think a bit differently than the US researchers, where they have very less compute compared to the Americans. So their models are a lot more compute efficient, right?
Okay.
So definitely they spend a lot less money than the Americans in training their models. I don't necessarily think it was that number that they mentioned, because again, it's good for marketing. Can Sri Lankans train a global level model? Possibly. We have the talent in terms of globally. Sri Lankans globally that's talent, because there's not many people that have actual experience building LLMs, right?
Yeah.
But I think the main the restriction would be GPUs. I don't think there's many enterprise grade like H100s in Sri Lanka. You need a few thousand of them at least.
But talking about the GPUs, there's an interesting product displayed by a company named Feynman at the Disrupt Asia. Right. I think you were with me also when we were discussing about. They were talking about now the GPUs are fine, but you can now do this training on quantum computing as well. I think their product is pretty much about there is a different way of programming, not the same thing which is known for everyone. So they will help at least the researchers who are doing high-end research to kind of do those research on the quantum computers, and that can be provided as a service. So probably that's also now evolving, is it?
I can't really speak too much into quantum computing, not necessarily my forte, but I think we're at least a few years away from any usable application. But I think IBM had a breakthrough recently as well. But again, I can't speak too much on that. And I just want to add one more thing about the local LLM. Resources by itself is not the only thing. Human capital is also quite a rare component that's required to build LLM. India has one or two LLMs. Think about it. It's a massive country, billion population. They're not poor. They're a massive tech talent as well. But yet there's there's one or two foundational models from India, but nothing on the global scale, right?
Yeah.
So it's, even though it's getting cheaper and cheaper, the know-how I akin it to the building of the nuclear weapon, like the Manhattan Project in the 1940s, right? That's why these engineers like Meta is scooping them up for $100 million salaries a year. That's how valuable it is.
Absolutely.
Maybe in about 5 years, it's going to be a lot more disseminated. But right now, the know-how is a lot more valuable than the GPUs.
Yeah. I mean, it's something like the chips where you have these nano level chips where you're talking about the nanometer distance where only few countries could kind of produce it, even with the money the others can't. And as you rightly said, if any country like somewhat like the Iran, Israel thing that we have seen, somebody's getting closer to that, maybe US might start bombing those also at some point, because that becomes the differentiator, right? Yeah. You never know about it. My last question, thanks so much, this is very insightful, is like it's very important. There are a lot of followers who are students, undergrads as well as there's a lot who are currently upskilling or reskilling themselves from more traditional degrees into data analytics, AI, because it's an hype as well. Data science, data analytics, all these agentic AI. There are so many degrees, courses being done. Now, I understand because of this whole thing, there are lesser opportunities for traditional development software engineering jobs, and we get to see that in the market as well. There are thousands and thousands of degree holders who are even unable to find an internship because that traditional hiring and the requirements. And we have seen some of the very high-end companies who were recruiting in thousands in Sri Lanka, their recruitments also have come down, right? Because of this whole thing. So I think it's extremely important for us to understand what type of futuristic skill set these students or anyone who is studying will have to have. I know it is also evolving. It's very difficult for you to predict. But if you want to become now, because you are an expert in this agentic AI space, what type of a tech stack they should at this moment, at the point of time now, right, as of now, that they should be looking into? Or do you think that you should not focus on any tech tool or tech stack, but you should probably stick to fundamentals and all, where whenever a tool kind of evolve, that you can adapt? So how somebody would be able to kind of tackle this, especially in two ways? One thing is the existing guys. The other one is anyone who is coming into new to IT.
Yeah, I would say that's a really valid concern to have. Like, knowledge. There is knowledge and there's intelligence, right? And people sometimes mistake knowledge for intelligence. Knowledge is not too cheap to meter. You don't have to memorize syntax or none of that. Coding agents are just going to become better and better, and the velocity at which the coding agents are improving, it's kind of mind-boggling, right? Like last year, I could not do 90% of the things I do now with Cloud Code and Codex. So what would an engineer want to know? And it might be pretty funny coming from a doctor, right? But I'm on the other side of the product, where I know what kind of skill sets that I would want. And I lead the team and I'm in charge of the hiring decisions, right? What would be needed is very in-depth conceptual knowledge about practices, about let's say software engineering, right? Because think of it like this: you have each engineer is going to have their own suite of agents, and if you don't know at a very deep conceptual, but at a deep level on how things work, you can't get the agents to do the correct thing. And that's why coding agents mess up when the instructions are not that great.
Right.
So go deep into, let's say if you're more of a back-end engineer, go deep into it. I personally think front-end is a bit dead, especially with the newer models which create really beautiful animations. Pretty much anything on the lower bottom quantile of work is useless. You can be QA, you can be front-end, back-end, whatever it is. So you need to upskill yourself rapidly. Your competition is not necessarily another individual, especially at the junior level. Your competition is Cloud Code.
Yes.
Because if Cloud Code costs me $200, I can give one to a senior engineer. That's like giving a senior engineer superpowers.
Yes.
And the only thing that senior engineer has is experience and systems level thinking and the ability to create technical documents on the plan.
Yes.
I want this feature. This is how you should be doing it.
Absolutely.
And that's a skill that you should learn. I mean, I know it's hard to do so, especially when you're quite junior, but it's never been easier to build. I learned through building, breaking, learning. Build something, build for yourself. You can literally do it for very little money. The only actual cost would be the LLM cost, right? Yeah. So if you go to Open Router, most of the time they still have free models. Like when the experimenting models, a lot of them are free. If you use Google AI Studio, their API has a free tier. It's a bit generous, enough for testing around. Or if not, you can get a really cheap Chinese model, right? But get those conceptual but in-depth understanding of the components in your field. And in terms of again, tech stack, I don't think it's too worrisome. Like I said, the concepts are same, right? It could be Python, it could be Node. Concepts are kind of common. The other thing is, if you're interested in agentic applications, learn the agentic lifecycle. Very few engineers actually understand the entire agentic lifecycle, right? Prompts still matter. The entire prompt. You have to have proper prompt management. Evals are a must. You need to track latencies. How do you set the entire thing up? How do you monitor a multi-agentic system in production? How do you have circuit breakers? And all of that you'll only learn by building. And there's probably a bit of information online. Again, this is such a new field. Like multi-agentic systems, I would not say was possible 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You can build it. It won't work in production, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of knowledge that I've gotten just by building. Nothing special. Build it, people use it, it broke, I learned from it, and that cycle. So yeah, that is what I would say. But if you're really interested in agents, it's never been a better time to get into it, because everyone is at the same level.
Yes. And they also say GPT-5 is now almost equivalent to a PhD. So it's almost like you can hire a PhD for $20.
And so use that knowledge to teach yourself. It's never been easy to learn. I wish I was a medical student, or wish I was practicing, because it's so easy to learn new concepts. Because medical concepts, it's not like knowledge, right? A equals B. It's quite in-depth concepts, where previously I had to flip through multiple different books to piece a certain story together. But now I can just ask, let's say, GPT-5 reasoning, and it will explain to me the pathophysiology, like in-depth reasoning, so I actually understand. And if you are motivated enough, it's never been easier to be a domain expert in your field.
Yeah. So this is pretty interesting, Sithira. I'm planning to get you to the studios quite often in order to find out about what's new. But at the same time, I just want to let you know that Sithira, with his busy schedule, has agreed to do an agentic AI awareness and a training program with us, with Sponge Global. So he's planning to do this one, and we will be using our trusted partner, elearning.lk, as our learning partner. And we are planning to even share this with globally as well as locally with anyone who's interested. Also, if you are interested in your own organizations to have an initial consultation, if you think that you wanted to have a discussion and see whether there are possible opportunities for you to adopt these agentic processes, please feel free to contact us, talk to us. We would like to look at your business and then give you certain recommendations. And then from there, if you think that truly you wanted to adopt and to discuss about how to do that, definitely Sithira and the Vector AI team is also there in order to help you. But I think the first thing that, as he rightly said, is for you to get an initial consultation to see what type of value that you can get from adopting these technologies, rather than just blindly, which we call the fashionistas, you're trying to adopt these. So with that, thank you again, Sithira, for coming. Thanks again for for following our channel, and please follow us for other content as well. All the best. Have a good day. Thank you so much, Sithira.
Thank you.